Hey, how are you doing? Today we're going to be looking at a topic called aspects of love. And to actually study that, we're going to look at a poetic form called the sonnet. In fact, we're going to be looking at one of the sonnets written by William Shakespeare, Sonnet 73. So keep in mind as we look at this poem that we're actually talking about aspects of love. That would be a good hint as we kind of look and dive into what Shakespeare was actually sharing in this particular sonnet. Now, here's a picture of this sonnet that you might find in your textbook or on the computer someplace. And I want us to talk just for a moment about the forms of sonnets. And what you're going to notice and what you're going to learn is that when you understand what a sonnet is, you can pretty much tell that a poem is a sonnet just by sight alone. For instance, looking at this sonnet, there are things that we know that we can help us determine how do we know this is a sonnet. Well, there are some things that we can look at, such as this. Every sonnet has 14 lines. Of those 14 lines, there are going to be three groupings of 4 lines, and those groupings are called quatrains, which is going to leave you with 2 lines left, and that is the last 2 lines of the poem, and that is called the couplet. So what I did here for the next slide is kind of divided things up a little bit to make sure we can see what a sonnet, what the components are really like. Now, before we actually get into talking about the particular sonnet, I want you to look at one thing, at least with this sonnet, and I think it holds true with a lot. But I want you to look, oh, I forgot that. Here's, yes, quatrain 1, there's quatrain 2, quatrain 3, and then the couplet. Now, in understanding this, I also want you to look at what I'm about to put in red. And I want you to notice that each quatrain and the couplet ends with a period. And so as we look at this particular poem, this particular sonnet, we're going to talk about each quatrain as its own idea and kind of come up with what is this quatrain saying as opposed to the next one and the next one, and then what does the couplet actually have to share. So in doing that, let's look at the first quatrain. That time of year thou mayest in me behold, when yellow leaves, or none, or few, do hang upon the boughs which shake against the cold, bare ruined choirs where late the sweet birds sang. Well, when we look at this, I want you to look at that phrase I just put in red that says the time of year. So what are we talking about as far as that time of year? Well, one of the things we need to comprehend is in literature and in poetry a lot, you're going to find that the seasons, the time of the year through seasons, indicates something. As you see on the chart here, there's spring, there's summer, there's autumn, and there's winter. And you're going to see off to the right what those things actually mean. New life all the way through old age. And if you simply look at the diagram and look at the tree, how it's aging over the course of that particular year. But it's not just sometimes a year, it can also be a day, which you're going to see comes into play in the next quatrain. And so you've got in this picture that I just put up there, morning, afternoon, evening, and then dark time. And so therefore, think of that symbolically as we look at this poem, as we look at this quatrain, because we are talking about a time of year. Now, in order to get a really good picture of what Shakespeare's talking about here, let's go ahead and get a picture that would illustrate what he's talking about. So he says, that time of year thou mayest in me behold, which means you might see, when yellow leaves, or none, or few, do hang upon those boughs which shake against the cold. So you've got this great picture that tells us we are at the end of fall. It's not the beginning. It's not the pretty part necessarily. It's the part where it says yellow leaves, or none, or few, do hang. And so when you think about this, you also need to be thinking about the narrator as he's talking about the me of this quatrain. And I need to move my picture for just a moment here. We're going to move it up here to the right to get out of the way. And what I want you to think about is there you go. There's a possible picture of a narrator. And you'll notice he's an older man. He's now using a cane, but you also notice, according to the third line, whose boughs upon shake against the cold. Think about older people who seem to always be cold and always have to be wearing a sweater. And so, as he's talking about, you mayest in me behold, who is the you? Who is the thou? We're going to assume that's probably his wife, his companion, who's now noticing that this person that I've lived with for maybe a long time is now much older than he obviously used to be. That is our first quatrain. The second quatrain says, in me thou seest the twilight of such day. And as sunset fadeth in the west, which by and by black night doth take away, death's second self that seals up all in rest. So, are there things to look at in this? Well, of course there are. So I want you to look again at the words I just put into red, and I want you to understand the process that this sonnet is talking about is not a quick night and day thing, or you turn on the light switch or off. It is, as it says, as the sunset fadeth, which by and by, so a slow, gradual move to what is now taking place. And then, does a picture help? Well, yeah, of course it does. And so here you have this idea of the darkness, of night coming to an, or I'm sorry, of the day coming to an end, which is representing once again the guy that is there. I need the picture just a bit here. And we're going to see that as we go on in this picture down here at the bottom now shows death's second self. And that kind of is really evident by the last phrase of the last line that seals up all in rest. And so it's like the guy is basically sharing with his companion, his wife, that each day I'm getting closer and closer and closer to my death, because that's what is you see happening every day. Quatrain, forgot that, yes. So here's a really good question for you to be thinking about is this. If this quatrain is talking about death's second self, it has got to raise the issue of what do you think death's first self is like? And we might find an answer to what that means in the third quatrain. So let's look at that right now. And that quatrain says this. In me thou seest the glowing of such fire that on the ashes of his youth doth lie, as the deathbed whereon it must expire, consumed with that by which it was nourished by. Okay, so the guy is comparing himself to a fire, and a glowing fire, as all fires glow, but to certain different extents. So when you think of a fresh fire, one that's really going, that's the picture we have here. That's not the picture of the current narrator. It's the narrator as he used to be. And so what we're now thinking about is a picture of a fire that looks like this. That's not inflamed very much, and all the ashes around, and that ash is going to be represented or be representative of the life the man had, which if you look at the pictures on the right side, here's the man in his prime. Here's the man when he could do so much. And all of that now is gone. It's part of the ash. And that ash, the more ash there is, the less oxygen there is to the fire. And it's just slowly being consumed by the very presence or by the very evidence of what his life used to be. He's just not, as we have said, the man he used to be, the man he once was. And this is what she is seeing when she looks at him. And there he is thinking and contemplating how difficult life has become. And this could refer to death's second self, because it's the time the man has to look at the death of the young man, the death of the man he used to be. He may still be alive, but he's not alive in the sense that he used to be when the fire was all glowing. It's just now kind of dwindling and getting less and less as the time goes by. Which brings us to the couplet. Let me move that again. Sorry about that. And this is the couplet. This thou perceivest. Again, you're seeing this, or not you, but the narrator's companion. This thou perceivest, which makes thy love more strong, to love that well which thou must leave ere long. So if you look at the word this, what does this refer to? Well, everything that's been said so far in this sonnet. You look by quatrain by quatrain, and the first one basically saying, I am in the later years of my life. Quatrain 2, my life is fading, and I'm approaching my death. Quatrain 3, again, as you can see, I am no longer the man I once was, able to do all that I once could. Which brings us to this couplet and this idea right here, that because you see all this and realize that I will be leaving you soon, your love for me grows even stronger. It's that whole idea that here is a sonnet that's talking about that because we are going to have to part soon, you are loving me more and more and more because you know our time is growing short.